Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video, we are looking at ARM holdings. It is time for another update. And since our previous video, we did manage to extend to higher prices, but not before we generated here in the smaller time frame a potential initial 5-wave move to the downside. So it is a time to be cautious. We have to keep a close eye on this smaller time frame structure. And before we get into those details, let's go through the larger time frame to provide the full context. So on this chart, we have a couple of options we are tracking. In white, we are looking at a larger leading diagonal where currently we would be within the overall wave 3. We would have an A, B, C pattern in wave 1. We would have a wave 2 correction here. And now within the wave 3, we are tracking yet another A, B, C structure. It is expected to extend considerably higher. Now, it doesn't need to get to $1,400. That is just for illustration. But we would expect to reach the ideal target for a wave 3 if it is to build such a pattern. That is at $542, the 138.2% extension of the wave 1. Now, in this development, we would expect to currently be still within the wave A, right? We expect an ABC pattern within the wave 3. We would expect the wave A to still extend within at least one more high, as it could theoretically work out to build directly a wave C into that territory, although I would be rather reserved on that expectation. And by the way, if you want to keep up to date with all of these developments, I would encourage you to subscribe, as we will keep a close eye on all opportunities on this chart and all the levels that you really need to watch for different signals, right? Now, in this structure, we are looking for this wave A to still extend higher, as I was saying, and we do not have a hard rule of the exact structure. It could be a 3-wave pattern we build within this wave A, an A, B, C structure. It could be a 5-wave move to the upside. It doesn't really matter at this point. Now, we also have the scenario in yellow, where we are looking at a larger A, B, C pattern, in which case we would be looking to build a 5-wave move to the upside in this area, but then we would need to expect a more substantial top to be in place. And we will likely be able to tell which pattern is unfolding when it comes to the larger wave 4 correction, right? If it is a wave 4 more in proportions with what we have in this smaller wave 2 in yellow, well, we would know it is likely part of the yellow interpretation. If we have a much more substantial wave 4, more of a match with this wave 2 in white, it would rather be suggested to us that the white interpretation is winning. Now, in this yellow structure, we are of course looking for an impulse to be built, since within this wave 1 we are tracking a leading diagonal, so the overall wave C must be an impulse because we have a 5-wave pattern within the wave 1. Then we have a wave 2 correction, which has just followed wonderfully all of our expectations, actually built the exact structure we were tracking in an ideal world before extending to higher prices. And now we are looking whether we have actually bottomed within this overall correction. And I wouldn't focus too much on whether this is in the white scenario or in the yellow scenario at the moment. We had a 3-wave correction in this area, and we are looking for the reversal. We do not have any strong confirmation yet, as we have pushed into the last level of resistance, the 78.6% retracement at $161. We have wicked above it, but only into our red resistance box, and overall we got rejected there. It didn't ultimately build a sustained break. And for those of you wondering what is up with this red resistance box we have, well, it is a zone ARM has previously formed substantial tops in, right? We had here this initial push in a wave A at $164, let's say. We have dropped from that level nearly 50%. Then we had a push to even higher prices. Yeah, nice, we actually broke out. Then we got another major rejection, another nearly 50%. We pushed once again into this resistance zone. Another drop, not as significant, but then once again we pushed even higher. Another large drop. So you can see in this region, we have continuously struggled to get past these levels. So we are watching and we are preparing to see more of a fight between the bulls and the bears within this region once more as we push into it. In either interpretation, we would ultimately expect to get a breakout. from this resistance region, but this doesn't mean it needs to happen in a direct fashion. And once again, we have pushed into this region and we have gotten rejected. Now, in this smaller time frame, we have been tracking, again, a yellow interpretation. In yellow, we are tracking an impulse and we are looking for an initial wave 1 to the upside within, once more, a leading diagonal. We have failed to build the idea of an impulse. We have been tracking that, didn't work out, not a problem. We can still track this as a wave 1 overall. And in this interpretation, we would expect a decent correction before actually breaking through this red resistance zone, but we would like to see one more high at the very least. And this would even enable us to look for an interesting trade setup. But once again, we need to build here the wave 4 and the wave 5. Then we also have the white interpretation that doesn't need to actually build an overall impulse in this movement to the upside. Yeah, we could be tracking an ABC within the wave A, that could also work out, in which case we could only build within the wave 1 of the wave C an ABC pattern, right? The wave C can work out as an ending diagonal, meaning an ABC structure would be a valid interpretation within this area. And within this assumption, we would currently be looking still for one more high in this region, but this last wave 5 would be part of this structure, part of this as a wave C. And in this assumption, we would actually like to even have a bottom in place at this point. I would really not prefer a reset. Now, in either interpretation, in the previous video, we have provided levels of resistance for a potential extension in a wave 5 in this pattern. Could it work out to still track this with something like an ABC structure, a 3-wave correction, which could fulfill the white expectation, because the wave 4 cannot be a 5-wave pattern? Well, we could, but I don't really trust it necessarily. I would have a slight preference for this being an actual 5-wave pattern to the downside, in which case we would need to be highly prepared that after a 3-wave correction into a resistance area, we would be looking for at least another 5-wave move to the downside. Could it work out still within the white interpretation? Theoretically, it could. I will be open for such an idea, but currently, I do not have such evidence, and I will be tracking the levels of resistance, the levels of support I would have for such an interpretation. Now, in this structure, I will be primarily tracking an ABC pattern. Could it work out to build something different? Definitely. I could even see this to build a complete reset. I could see this form a lower low, yeah, push even below $100 where we have previously bottomed within this correction. It is a possibility we need to consider, but we do not need to worry too much about that because we would have our signals when this actually becomes a real threat. We would have the levels of support in our white structure down to $131.5 and in the yellow structure down to $129.4. With this in mind, we would not need to concern ourselves with this currently, as we will have our signal, our indication. Using a stop loss somewhere below this region might not be a bad idea. Yeah, breaking this last level of support is an indication we would see a reset of this bottom, right? That we would see a push to even lower prices, possibly still holding overall the area of support we have for direct continuation to high prices from the current larger degree expectations. Now, since we have the initial 5-wave move to the downside, we are tracking it as a wave A. Again, could be a wave 1, but what I want to highlight here is the area of resistance we need to highlight, we need to focus on for this interpretation, which is for a wave 2 or a wave B, yeah, the 78.6% retracement at $158.3. In this expectation, if we get a break above this last level of resistance, it would be rather an indication that a bottom has already formed in this movement to the downside, and that the next wave to the upside would be unfolding. Now, so far, we can notice extremely clearly that we pushed within this movement to the upside since the current bottom perfectly into the last level of resistance. We have gotten rejected there, however, and we only have a 3-wave pattern in this development. This is a warning that a wave B, or even a wave 2 for that matter, could have a top in place, that we wouldn't need to extend any higher for this structure to be complete, and the fact that we didn't get a sustained break above this level and we got rejected highlights that the threat is real. The pressure still remains and there is a good chance we will be extending directly to lower prices, where in the case of a wave C, we would be looking for the ideal target to be the 100% extension of the wave A. That would be at $131. In the case of a wave 3, well, the ideal target here would be $121.4 at the 138.2% extension of the wave 1. We cannot predict at the moment which type of pattern will be unfolding, but we do know that if we get to the ideal target for the wave 3, we need to be extremely wary of a potential wave 4 correction before extension to even lower prices within a wave 5, but the likely portion of this pattern would be the first 3 waves. Yeah, at least an ABC pattern would be typically expected, and that is, for this reason, my preferred interpretation. Yeah, this is usually the edge Elliott wave theory provides us, where we know that after an initial 5-wave structure, we expect a 3-wave correction into its area of support or resistance in this case, and then trend continuation within at least another 5-wave move to the downside. This applies within a 3-wave pattern. This applies within an impulse, where in an impulse we would actually be looking still afterwards for a wave 4 and a wave 5. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that within the wave C, while the ideal target is the 100% extension of the wave A, it doesn't always need to get there and it doesn't need to even stop there, but we do know that within the wave 3 we would expect to reach at least the 138.2% extension typically. I sometimes still look for resistances in a wave 4 even if we get to, let's say, the previous extension, the 123.6% extension, but that's a bit of a hint that it is quite possible that the wave 4 and the wave 5 might not happen and that we will see a failure of this supposed last leg of an impulse. Now, in this structure, I cannot rule out the possibility of a direct breakout, so I would be looking for a possible A, B, C structure to be in formation here. For this reason, I can provide an internal area of support, but since this is a 3-wave pattern, I am not provided any edge in this development. I do not get any strong indication whether it will succeed in forming this extension or not, and so far we can see we found some support in this region at the 50% retracement, but in what has formed from these current prices, even here in the smaller time frame, I can only identify a 3-wave move in this structure, a 3-wave correction, and what could eventually form a 5-wave move to the upside. I would actually still like a 4 and a 5 in this pattern, and I would actually have an A, B, C structure complete in such a case. Now, I won't look too much into this development to lower prices. It could be that this is a simple A, B, C structure, but I wouldn't focus too much on internal resistance levels at this point in time, as I would still like to see some future developments, and given also the time frame, I wouldn't focus too much on this. Now, for this extension to high prices, I could track an ABC structure here that could complete a wave 5. Now, typically, I would expect this wave 5, if it is to form the direct extension, to actually be part of the white interpretation rather than the yellow structure, mostly due to the fact that this as a wave 4 correction is a much better match for what we have in this wave 2 correction, right? If I have such a small correction in this area, it would be rather difficult to match it for this wave 2 in yellow. Yeah, this wave 4 in yellow would be expected to actually extend to lower prices. And for now, I wouldn't go much beyond this. We could do one more thing before we end the video, which is to provide the ideal target also for this as a wave C to the upside, which once again would be the 100% extension of the wave A, and that sits at $169.7, although I repeat myself, this is an ideal target, it doesn't need to get there, and of course, it can extend even beyond that. But for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoy our content and want to support us directly, check out our channel membership. And as a thank you for any of these actions, I would like to invite you to sign up to our channel newsletter, where you get access to our monthly top picks. And if you sign up by the end of this week, you will still get access to April's watch list, but this will be going away very shortly. And one setup in particular comes to mind that we provided there might have already bottomed and would already be looking for extensions. Now, I cannot promise that. We will have to wait and see in the end how that develops, but for now, I wish you a nice day and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.